Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Tim's News Explosion on this Monday, the 24th of February 2025. It is 3 years to the day when the Russian military began its operations in Ukraine. There's obviously been a lot of developments, talk from the Trump administration about finally bringing the conflict to an end. We'll certainly get into that later in the program. We are live as always on the Wilms Front YouTube channel, the Wilms Front Rumble channel, and my Wilms Front X account. It is 8:30 p.m. here in Melbourne, Victoria. Back to our regular showtime after last Monday evening's first ever Tim's watch party, as myself and Margot Huss live reacted to the premiere of the Four Corners episode, Leaving Hate, focused on the National Socialist Network. I was wondering whether it'd be taken down for copyright, but it's still available along with last week's Tim's News Explosion, which we did an hour afterwards. I saw that Mark Collette of Patriotic Alternative did his own live reaction to that Four Corners episode. He had a Patriotic Alternative, I should say, had a undercover investigator sent by the BBC, secretly filming them for about a year, although it wasn't that extensive. This Four Corners episode just interviewed the mother of a NSN member and also the brothers of a girl who married and had a child with one of the leaders of NSN in Brisbane, Gabe. Paleoconservative Australian, hello, good to see you. My live reaction watch party, that is on all of the Wilms Front channels, so here on YouTube, but Mark Collette has been banned from YouTube, so he only does Odyssey and DLive. So he's been mass deplatformed over the years. And now, immediately after Four Corners last week, after Four Corners, they have Media Watch, whose new host is Linton Besser, who decided you have to be a pompous, self-righteous twat to be an ABC Media Watch host. And in the episode that I watched last week, well, the segment that focused on Sam Newman's interview with Thomas Sowell and Blair Cottrell, he was at his pompous, self-righteous most. He even had a quote from Cass Ross. She only does audio and articles because there is not a wide screen that is big enough to fit in Cass Ross. She's never been featured on TV. So now Linton Besser, I'd never heard of him until he became the host of Media Watch. He is Jewish. His grandparents were Holocaust survivors. He's had various jobs at the ABC as investigative reporter, Europe correspondent, but he's not a household name like the previous host, Paul Barry, who actually had a big CV as a journalist, including writing the biography of Shane Warne, alleging that he'd slept with 1,000 women. Now, Sam Newman, he of course, responded as he always likes to have a right of reply. And so on the Tuesday morning, he uploaded his response to pompous Linton Bess's smarmy, condescending commentary on his interview of Blair Cottrell and Thomas Sewell.
Here's the gift that keeps giving. Suppose you're an idiot and suppose you're Linton Besser of Media Watch. But I repeat myself, Linton is a shallow, dopey-looking person who said I was trying to remain relevant by interviewing a couple of neo-Nazis, then went on to show why I was relevant by showing several clips of them on various media outlets, one of them being a talk show on the ABC. You can't make this stuff up. He then said I was giving them oxygen, so much so that they raised $35,000 as a result of being on my podcast, You Cannot Be Serious. $35,000, I suppose he resonates with. That's probably his salary, which we pay, incidentally. He then gave a bitch slap to Ben Fordham. Ben, who carries $35,000 in his wallet, mainly because he's talented and got an audience. His bum boy then misrepresented a statement I gave Media Watch. So desperate is their plight. Pray one day that someone like little Linton Besser comes after you. It'll make you feel so superior.
Yeah, so I'm not going to play the whole segment, but he called Sam Newman. He does the podcast to stay relevant. Well, Sam Newman could happily just retire. He's 79 years old with his yachts and his cars, and there are rumors abound that he's about to be engaged to his co-host / producer Sue Stanley, OAM, but he wants to keep busy, keep active, and that's why he does this podcast, which gets on average 100,000 downloads per episode. That's excluding YouTube. And there's normally 3 or 4 parts that he releases on a Wednesday, and Linton Besser on Media Watch does 15 minutes a week, and I think he's actually given a full-time salary by the ABC, and he has research assistants as well. You Cannot Be Serious by Sam. I mean, he has Sue Stanley help, but it's pretty much him. And of course, Sam Newman, successful VFL, AFL player, media pundit, including 25 years on the Footy Show. And then Linton Besser had a go at Ben Fordham for defending Sam's right to interview people of public interest. And Linton Besser, I remember he had to concede, oh, well, I'm promoting them by covering this. So he sort of is self-aware. And also, he misrepresented what Blair said on that ABC Hack Live episode. He says that Blair Cottrell admitted to being racist. What Blair actually said, and you can watch it, it's still up, he said, yeah, I am racist by today's standards. So he was just saying that he would be considered racist in the current politically correct climate. So completely took Blair out of context. So yeah, I certainly won't be watching any more Media Watch. Like I said, they've all been pompous twats on that show. The salary is paid for by us through our taxes. We can't even, like the Brits with the BBC, we can't even just refuse to pay the license fee. It just comes out of consolidated revenue. And now, Sam Newman, in his defense of interviewing Tom and Blair, said they're covered all by the mainstream media all the time, their platform, particularly by 9 News. And the lead story on 9 Sunday News was again NSN, and 9 Sunday News, its acronym is NSN. So like the week before, NSN, 9 Sunday News, led with a report about the National Socialist Network.
Veterans have gathered at the shrine for the traditional last post, just days after it came under threat due to cost cutting. There was some minor disruption from a far-right group which turned up unexpectedly. Live to Mimi Becker. Mimi, the service was meant to honour some faithful furry companions.
It was, Pete, and today's service was extra special given the tough week that people have endured here at the shrine. There were fears that the last post ceremony would fall silent from Anzac Day due to budget constraints. $75,000 was all that was needed to save it, and the funding has now been secured. There are still details to work through there, but today's service did focus on Animal War Remembrance Day and that bond of animals both overseas and back at home as well. People relieved this tradition will be kept alive.
We're certain that those details will be ironed out in the coming weeks, so we're encouraged that we're seeing the last post service continuing for some time to come.
It's not just a one day over the year event, it's the sacrifices over a period of time, and it should be at the back of our minds on an everyday or every week basis.
Now, there was an increased police presence here at the shrine after a group believed to be neo-Nazis arrived ahead of the ceremony. Around 20 men, all dressed in black, were met by specialised public order response police officers, and they were spoken to by those officers and addressed as well by the CEO from the shrine. The group eventually turned around and walked away, leaving without significant incident. But police do have special powers here at the shrine to move people on. So officers are now investigating if any offences were committed. Pete?
Mimi Becker reporting from the shrine.
So it's Section 6 of the Shrine of Remembrance Act, Section 6. That's a bit of a tongue twister there. So people can be moved on from the shrine to preserve the good order. Now, the National Socialist Network various members have attended various Remembrance Day and Anzac Day commemorations over the years without a police. Well, it was not just these. I'm about to play the footage that was taken by an NSN member. So you can see that it's just normal police at the front, and then they've got the port there. So apparently the last post, which is every Sunday at 4:45 p.m. at the shrine, was going to be ended because of funding cuts to Victoria Police. Yet they must have found a lot of extra funding to amass all of these police officers and the public order response teams to deal with a group of about 20.
Afternoon all. Right, I'm Inspector Jason Goddard from Victoria Police. So Inspector Goddard from Victoria Police. So I'm actually going to invoke sections of the Shrine regulations. Under specific section S, right, conducts or assembles here in breach of the regulations, which I see you guys are doing at the moment.
Are we in breach of regulations?
You're in breach of the regulations. I'm not going to go through all of that. All right, you're in breach of regulations. I'm going to tell you, this is your warning, your only warning. You are to leave. If you fail to do so, you will be arrested. You will be taken directly to a magistrate or to a bail justice. As you can see, we've got plenty of police here to deal with this, and we will deal with it.
Which regulations specifically have we broken?
I've just said that to you. Under Section 6, Section S.
So Australian citizens aren't allowed to pay respect.
Can you read that
regulation?
regulation?
I'll just explain to you as well.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we can't deal with this with on-the-spot fines. We can't deal with it.
Deal with what?
And if you refuse to leave after
No. We're here to attend the last
Guys,
post.
listen up.
We're not here to assemble or to
you
protest
must be taken
anything.
to a magistrate. It's going to be a long day.
A magistrate, but what law are we breaking?
Listen up, guys. All right, okay. We've got a representative
I don't
from
understand
the
what you're
shrine here.
saying.
Listen up. All right, give it the respect to the shrine.
We're here to respect the shrine.
Yeah, I'd like to just say, obviously, in the first instance, all people have a right to come to this place in peaceful observance.
That's what we're doing.
However, we do have a service planned at the moment, and that service is for a specific purpose, which is to honour war animals and their service in support of Australian Defence Force troops over hundreds of years. We believe that it is best that that service is allowed to be conducted without any group who are seeking to demonstrate any level of political allegiance or affiliation that is not related to the purpose of this place.
Everybody has political allegiance.
Hold on.
Yeah.
If we come without political memorabilia, can we attend?
No, you've done your dash for today. All right, guys. You're to move.
We're just here to
all right?
attend. We're not here to assemble.
If you
We're
do
not
not,
here to protest,
if
we're
you
not
do
here to
not, you will be
assemble.
arrested. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to move on. If you want to step back, Port.
So,
Right.
But before we go,
No, wait up.
What is it?
No, wait
What
up.
is- what
Right.
is the regulation?
And Tim Lutz and Jimon Roberts were arrested and put before a magistrate on Sunday evening. They have both been released now, and they're going to be on a stream on Thursday evening at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And now, most of the NSN members were wearing their what is considered their black bloc uniform. So they obviously, Victoria Police, this was unprecedented what they did, but because they were all dressed in what is considered their uniform, it gave Victoria Police a excuse to claim that they were there for a political purpose. Well, they would have taken a photo which they would have put on the NSN or EAM Telegram channels, which are still there. Jacob Pershant's Telegram channel was deleted completely last week, which is, it wasn't just blocked by iOS. So he's created another channel called Her Sent Logistics. So that has got about 1,600 subscribers and is, well, it's currently up there. So like I said, the fact that they still wore the black bloc, that again, I'm not trying to justify Victoria Police's unprecedented action, but I'm just sort of, I certainly don't want to give NSN any advice, but it'd be an interesting experiment if they just went back there just in casual clothes, just say jeans and a flannelette shirt. Now, obviously they were targeted because they are the National Socialist Network. I doubt that, say, if Monica Schmidt and Reignite Democracy Australia wanted to go there, they'd be threatened with arrest. Though there was another woman who had a Red Ensign flag, and police tried to kick her out, though she was eventually allowed in after she pushed back, because it is one of our national flags. And now this Shrine CEO, I can't remember his name, but at least he did man up and speak to them face to face. So I give him credit for that. But was he the Shrine CEO that a couple of years ago, I think it was back in 2022, it was going to have the rainbow flag colors at the Shrine one day to honor LGBT fallen soldiers, because as the news said, this was because they like to have a theme for the last post. That and it was this week it was to honour fallen service animals. So it was claimed that this was just one of the themes, though it was scaled back significantly. But that's political. The rainbow flag is political. Now, yeah, just going back to the Shrine budget cuts. So yeah, this was a Steve Price article, so there's a lot of hyperbole. Savage cuts to Victoria Police budget have forced Police Command to cease providing police support for the Bugle event at a cost of $75,000 per year. I'm not aware of how much it costs to deploy all those police officers on one day, but I think the wages bill might have been about $75,000 just for one day. But yeah, they suddenly found some money there. But as I wrote in the comments here, where were all of these police officers Friday night in Footscray, where there was another youth gang machete fight? Which, I mean, if you're a regular watcher of 9 News, when they're not covering NSN on a Sunday night, it's just basically full of violent crime reports. Machete fights in the street, home invasions, carjackings, the firebombing of these tobacco stores. So they can, yeah, but they can find all of these police officers to deploy for 20 white guys at the Shrine, and it sort of seems to me that because at Australia Day last year in Sydney, they stopped them going into New South Wales Police, stopped them going into the Sydney CBD on Australia Day, and then there was the Queensland Police who moved them on from the Brisbane CBD, and there was that real what's the best way to describe him without getting too personal, but that officer who was like, I find your views offensive, and snatched I think it was Thomas Sewell's phone and said, oh, I'll give it back if you say please. And then of course the South Australian Police on Australia Day in Adelaide, of course, charging them, holding them on remand, 16 of them, for 2 days before they were put before the magistrates court. And in fact, Stephen Wells, he is still in custody. He refused to sign the bail conditions. So that's him there, which what looks like a Hitler moustache. As far as I know, yet they are not illegal. So he is still on remand in Adelaide in South Australia. His wife, Sophia Wells, has been posting on his Stephen Wells Trigger Everything Telegram channel. But yes, all the others eventually accepted the non-association bail conditions. That's why, obviously, there was no Thomas Sewell and Joel Davis there. Jimohan Roberts, Tim Lutz, and Jacob Herzant were not. Well, I can't remember where Tim Lutz was on Australia Day, but he wasn't arrested. But Jimohan Roberts and Jacob Herzant were here in Melbourne attending the National Workers Alliance event in Melbourne. So they weren't in Adelaide. But as I mentioned, Jacob, first he got deleted from X, as did all the other National Socialist Network members and associates, but also banned from Telegram. Then Andrew Torba, the founder and CEO of Gab, posted that late last night, Gab got an emergency data request from the Australian government for offensive posts made by a user about their Prime Minister. Apparently in Australia, Section 474(17) Criminal Code, Commonwealth 1995 can get you locked up for a year for offending someone on the internet. Anyway, I told them to get bent, as he tells the German government and all the other European governments. Now, that Section 474(17), that is using a carriage service to menace or harass. Now, how offensive was this post meme? Remember, Anthony Albanese at a press conference once said that he was glad that social media companies complied with takedown notices to take down memes of him with his face superimposed on other people's bodies. So maybe it did come from the Prime Minister. But of course, there's heaps on all the social media mocking Anthony Albanese, including the Danger Dan Andrews, who what was the one that he did recently? My freeloading rent-a-girlfriend said she'd leave me if I didn't buy her a beachside mansion. Did anyone see that? I mean, you don't need to make memes about Albo to mock him. Did anyone see that? I'm not going to play it. That Valentine's Day video that he released with his fiancée Jodie Hayden. That was absolute cringe. And then he went on this podcast with Abby Chatfield. I'm not sure if it's a real name. It went for about 75 minutes. Now, this is not just a startup podcast. It's part of the Listener Network, which is bankrolled by Southern Cross Austereo. Bruce says the Valentine's Day thing made me throw up. Yes, that's why I didn't post it. And obviously, I've got limits on Restream how many of those videos that I can play. Now, of course, we had the hate speech laws, hate crimes laws, I should say, that passed the federal parliament, which includes a 1-year mandatory minimum for displaying a Nazi symbol or a Nazi salute. So Steve Bannon, most recent to throw up a Roman, all started by Elon Musk saying, my heart goes out to you. Although Father Calvin Robertson, who actually I wanted to migrate to the United States, which was the Anglican Catholic Church, at a pro-life event, he said, my heart goes out to you. He was actually defrocked and deported from the United States because his visa was cancelled for doing the my heart goes out to you. Absolutely incredible. So is the Trump administration trying to pump up the numbers by deporting based people like Father Calvin Robertson? I think that should be reviewed by ICE and also by Homeland Security, Kristi Noem. Melissa says, Abby boils my blood. Well, thankfully, I'd never heard of her until Albo went on this podcast, and certainly, like Linton Bester on Media Watch, I won't be seeking them out again. Now, New South Wales, they passed their hate speech laws, which The Guardian published an article critical of them, and this was probably because the Greens voted against it. So this gear, already police have powers to, well, you have to apply for a permit to have a protest in New South Wales. They want to bring the Liberal opposition have promised to bring those laws down here. I actually think Brad Batten, after he took the leadership, has said he's not in favour of it, but Prosciutto and his deputy David Southwick were. So these new laws mean that if someone is obstructing someone in or near a place of worship, police can issue a move on order. So this includes if it's just like they're just walking past. So the laws cover they create new aggravated offences for displaying a Nazi symbol or near a synagogue. There were two veterans who one of them was showing off his World War II memorabilia, and both arrested and denied bail. And it's create an aggravated offence for graffiti of a place of worship. So legal experts, so they've quoted the Human Rights Law Centre. This is why the law is so bad, is because it's not precise. So the bill, it makes a criminal offence to intentionally and publicly incite hatred towards another person or a group of people on the grounds of race. So it says here in The Guardian, after backlash that the scope is limited to race, the government will also undertake a 6-month review to determine if the law should be expanded to include other vulnerable groups, such as the LGBTQ+ community, because they want protests against drag queen story time to be illegal. And I remember, I haven't heard from him much lately, Gabriel Mare, who he was the last host of the Groyper Australia First, did quite a courageous protest, a counter protest to some socialist queers trying to reclaim Oxford Street. He and a mate held up a sign which read "Christ or Chaos," and one of them went up to abuse him about his haircut, and Gabriel responded, "Take a look at yourself, faggot." So that if the activists got their way, then that such protest, Gabriel and his friend would probably be charged for that. Now, the Allen Labor government, they have capitulated to the lobbying of Jewish groups who didn't like their proposed anti-vilification expansion laws, because they had a political purpose defense. There'll still be a religious defense, but not a political purpose offence. So the Liberal opposition under Brad Batten and the Shadow Attorney General Michael O'Brien said that they will support these laws if the civil provisions are changed. So this is where somebody decides to launch a civil case against somebody for saying mean words. They want a reasonable purpose test instead of what a reasonable person of their protected attributes, because it's too subjective. So even though these laws should not pass, I mean, at least the Allen government decided that in the draft that there should be a political purpose defense, but that's now gutted. And so I think they are probably trying to wedge the Liberal opposition. We don't know whether they'll bring it to the upper house, because the Greens, they're sort of not too sure now, because they believe that pro-Palestine activists will be targeted with it. Certainly Hashtag, that pro-Palestine Burgatory franchise CEO, Victoria Police have been after him for a while. They tried to see if they could charge him for saying all Zionists are terrorists, but they couldn't. They might, if these laws do pass, might have more of more of a case against him. But yeah, so we're being slammed by laws against free speech from all angles. And remember, these expanded anti-vilification laws include up to 5 years in jail for inciting hate on protected attributes of race, religion, sexual orientation, sex, gender identity, disability, intersex status. So they've passed the lower house. Let's hope that it dies a silent death. Now, of course, it's not just the Jewish lobby groups that lobby for these anti-free speech laws. It's also a lot of these migrant groups, and we've had Chris Minns, the New South Wales Premier, openly admit that he wants these laws should be passed to protect the multiculturalism that we've worked for. In the New South Wales Upper House, John Ruddock of the Libertarian Party made a great contribution, and Mark Latham, former One Nation MLC, now independent, certainly raised a lot of eyebrows with his remarks.
I'd just like to add this, Mr. Deputy President. I think there should be a rule in this place that if the right-wing Libertarian Party and the left-wing Green Party are in agreement on something, the chamber should pause and think, gee, maybe these guys who generally have a very different worldview, maybe they are right, and this is one of those occasions.
Right. Okay, then.
The government's package of measures supposedly to stop anti-Semitism is an exercise in futility. It's a knee-jerk reaction from a premier seduced by the bright lights of favourable media coverage, who's got himself way too close to the Jewish lobby and News Corp in particular. As we heard earlier from the Finance Minister, this bill is written, spoken and authorised by the Jewish Board of Deputies. This is not leadership, it's a capitulation. For 50 years I've supported the State of Israel down the line. But one thing I learnt from my time in Canberra was that the correct position is to support Israel and its territorial sovereignty in the Middle East, while keeping the Jewish lobby at half an arm's length, not a full arm's length, half an arm's length. Why? Because as well-intentioned as they might be, as oppressed over centuries they have been,
I think he's protected
they have
by
a long list of
privilege
proposals for the censorship of others. In the logic of public life, it doesn't make sense to try to save one people from oppression by oppressing others as a group or
I think there are a lot of Australians who would share Mark Latham's sentiments that, look, there is undue influence affecting our laws by this one lobby. And Mark Latham said, like, look, I went along with the standard pro-Israel position for all my political life, but he's seen what's going on now. Of course, we had the Sky News Anti-Semitism Summit, which was co-hosted by Sherry Markson and Alex Rifkin, the co-CEO of the Executive Council of Australian Jewry, was held in the Great Synagogue in Sydney. And I noticed that all of the male speakers, they all wore the same. It's like there was a official kippa for the forum. So it was a bright blue one with white around the base of it. But I actually did enjoy although I can't stand him most of the time, the Federal Attorney General Mark Dreyfus. He's Jewish himself, but he was heckled for telling them that anti-Semitism should not be weaponized for political purposes and to sell newspapers and for TV ratings. It's like he went there just deliberately to, just troll them and just stick it up them. And and of course Sky News was, oh, that was awful, but like, he's Jewish himself. You can't basically like say that it's not personal to him. He was obviously referencing the Daily Telegraph's attempted sting on Cairo takeaway, which covered last week, where they sent that undercover Jew to see what would be the reaction he was wearing a cap with a star of David on it, and the Age and the Sydney Morning Herald, they actually got the footage and the from the man's sunglasses and the audio from the reporter for that, whose name is Danielle Gasamiro, and the Jewish man who they were using, their undercover Jew, he sent a legal letter to Cairo Takeaway, claiming that they defamed him. The undercover audio makes it clear that he basically didn't provoke anything. It was the reporter who tried to say that the waitress had said stuff that she hadn't. She was basically trying to, well, she worried there wasn't going to be a story, so she sort of tried to create one. She has not on the Daily Telegraph website has not filed a report since this one back on. She hasn't filed a report since 10 days. She may be on some sort of leave. Now, News Corp has a history of standing by the reporters even when they do dodgy shit, so she may return. Now, the Daily Telegraph, they did have another scoop this week, though it did have substance to it because it has actually happened, and that is Home Affairs Minister Tony Burke holding mass citizenship ceremonies in Western Sydney, where he and a whole bunch of his Labor colleagues are desperate to hold on to their seats at the upcoming federal elections. So Tony Burke is wanting to, and this is quite unusual for a Home Affairs immigration minister to conduct mass ceremonies in this way, because under Australian law, you must be an Australian citizen to be able to enroll to vote in federal elections. And it just so happens that at these mass citizenship ceremonies, where over the next few weeks, 12,852 people will be becoming Australian citizens. Now, it's important to stress that they are not being put through any express lane, though it is pretty easy compared to other countries to become an Australian citizen. You need to live here for 4 years and be a permanent resident for 1. So it's, as we are seeing, it's very easy to get your foot in the door through the skilled migration program, and then there's all sorts of other ways to game the system through the international students system, and also just claiming you're a refugee and staying here for many, many years. So as you can see here, that It's actually part of, I'm not sure if it's new law or regulation, that the AEC is at these citizenship ceremonies to sign them up to vote. I heard, I can't remember, it was some Sky News commentator has said, was there a how to vote card for Labor stapled to the enrolment form? Now, the breakdown of the country of origin of these new Australian citizens, and given that basically getting 500,000 net migrants coming in every year, I mean, this is just a drop in the bucket here, but it certainly does seem that there's a political motivation for it. So India, imagine my shock, is the country of origin with the largest number of new citizens, 2,300. New Zealand is next with almost 2,000 because, well, there's lots of Kiwis who are fleeing New Zealand, but there's still, like, it's Kiwis who've been there for like most of their lifetime are coming here. The United Kingdom is third, then the Philippines, mainland China, Nepal, Iraq, Afghanistan, Vietnam, and Sri Lanka round out the top 10. There are no Palestinians amongst the list of people getting their citizenship in time to vote. That is something that Peter Dutton falsely alleged. Peter Dutton says that it should be easier to strip Australian citizenship, though there would have to be a constitutional referendum to remove the separation of powers, because the High Court decided that only people like them, the judiciary, should have the power to strip citizenship, not a minister. So that is why we are stuck with those criminal illegals, the NZYQ. 3 of these criminals are going to be resettled on Nauru, but they're allowed to stay in Australia while they are appealing it, because apparently Nauru is not an appropriate country. Dawn Browning says, barbers, nail techs, and phone sales and vape vendors will soon be part of the skill set a la UK. Well, vapes are supposed to be illegal, only be sold by prescription. So the Daily Telegraph in Sydney, their front page was the Tony Awards exclusive, Burke's bid for votes as he rushes through 12,000 new Aussies for citizenship. Now, this was written by a credible journalist for the Daily Telegraph, James O'Doherty, who himself is a New Zealand migrant to Australia. He started off as a Sky News's New Zealand bureau chief, but he transferred here, and now he's part of the Canberra Press Gallery for the Daily Telegraph. He was the one that always made Brad Hazzard extra grumpy at COVID press conferences by asking him questions that he didn't like. Of course, it didn't take much to get Brad Hazzard really grumpy and annoyed at COVID press conferences, because that was his personality. And now it turns out that because it's supposed to be at citizenship ceremonies, the local MP is supposed to be invited. Now, the seat of Fowler around the city of Fairfield is held by independent Dai Lee, who thankfully defeated Christina Keneally, the parachuted Labor candidate, last federal election. Now, Anthony Albanese said she wasn't invited because it was at Homebush, but there would have been residents in this division of Fowler who would have been there, and the Labor candidate for Fowler, Chu Lee, so a Vietnamese Australian, like Dai Lee. It's the battle of the Vietnamese leads in the seat of Fowler at the federal election. Chu Lee, she was the one that was shafted for Christina Keneally. She was invited to the citizenship ceremony, even though supposedly it wasn't in her electorate. Now, down here in Melbourne, in the Herald Sun, on this was on Friday, Future Victoria, Faces of a Bright Future. I swear that the Herald Sun was basically just trolling us, wanting to generate some clicks with this front page, because they chose as the main face of a bright future a Sikh family with obviously the father and their 12-year-old son in a Sikh turban. And I don't like to see in Australia young children, whether they're boys when it comes to Sikhism or girls when it comes to Islam, forced to cover their hairs. I believe that, well, Australia, you're supposed to have freedom of religion, freedom of choice. I believe that the children should be given a choice about what they want to do with their hair. I feel that a lot of young Sikh boys and men are certainly pressured into it, as would be Islamic girls and women. This is why I'm actually glad that there have been female Muslim activists here in Australia who have de-hijabbing, taking off their hijab, and I certainly say good for them. But this was the article. Let me just bring it up here. I did have it here, but then I lost it. Just bear with me. Here we go. I got it here. Apology for the delay. So yeah, this was the Future Victoria series that the Herald Sun has. So how the state's most common surnames are changing, and it was accompanied by this graphic that they included. So Singh is now the top baby surname in Victoria in 2024, followed by Nguyen, which is Vietnamese, Kerr, which is also Indian. Then there is Smith, which of course is a common English white surname, as is Williams. Patel is also a common Indian surname, as is Sharma. So Dave Sharma, the federal Liberal senator, is part Indian. Then there's still some white English surnames rounding it out: Jones, Brown, and Wilson. So at first they profiled this the Singhs. So they first profiled the Smith family, who live in Armstrong Creek, which is in Geelong's urban growth boundary. And then they interview the Singhs, who live in Tarneet. And it's very striking what Mr. Singh says, that he loved the strong Indian community in the area. So basically, he wants to live in a self-segregated enclave, a India within Melbourne. I love the area I live in, and I have people from my community living here. It's a very close-knit community. My parents also moved from India and now live here. They too have a great diverse group of friends, and they don't miss being in India at all, because it's like India here. I think when he says diverse, I think he means like not like us. And it says that even within the thriving Indian community in the area, Mr. Singh said he did sometimes fear for his children living in a different culture. My children are so far away where we come from sometimes. I feel that they're very far from their roots. I want my children to be proud of their roots, but also make sure they love this land that has given us everything, and not have any resentments because of discrimination. Even though I know that Ozpil and What's News, they have captured a few Sikhs slagging off the Australian story about white settler colonialism dispossessing Aboriginals. The Nguyen family is basically sort of the sort of stereotypical study-focused Asian family. So one's studying to be an engineer at university. The other one is planning to be a doctor. So they live in Point Cook, which is also in Melbourne's urban sprawl in the west. So the Singh family are in Tarneet. Then there's the Ali family. That's a Pakistani name. So the wife works as a project manager for Save the Children. So credit to them. They actually don't self-segregate, because they said, we don't feel like we are being placed in the corner with the same type of people. The community is very diverse. We have families and communities from all over Asia. So at least they're sort of wanting to sort of, integrate. And then there is the Kaur family, which is another Sikh family. And it does seem to be a theme that the Sikhs are the most self-segregating. So Dilpreet Kaur Jaswal and her family moved to their new home in Wheelers Hill 6 years ago. They used to live in Hoppers Crossing, but they moved to Rowville because there weren't any Sikh temples in Hoppers Crossing. So they roomed specifically for a Sikh temple. At the time, there wasn't a big Punjabi community there, and it was a small country suburb. So Miss Kaur Kasau and her husband both worked at Melbourne University before starting a school for international students. They now make a living offering English courses and advanced hospitality diplomas. I won't say anything else. Now, back to the top of this article, it does quote we've got another census coming in 2025. And it does mention here that the 5 most common languages spoken in Australia other than English are Mandarin, Arabic, Vietnamese, Cantonese, and Punjabi, which is predominantly spoken by Sikhs. Hindus tend to speak Hindis, and Hindus also, they do tend to integrate a bit better with all of us. Though it has gone viral again recently, that riot in the Melbourne CBD back at the beginning of 2023 between the Hindus and the Sikhs, when the Sikhs were holding their fake referendum for the a Khalinistani independent nation in Punjab province. They're supposed to leave their grievances behind, though the retiring member for Colwell, which takes in a lot of these diverse areas, Maria Vamavankantua, said that we can't expect them to leave their grievances when they come to Australia. Tarneet used to always be in the weekly crime reports. Mr. Singh can have his in-group preference region. Well, the crime tends to be perpetrated by youth gang members of another migrant group. I met a local Tarneet resident. I actually interviewed him back on the Unshackled Waves, who stood as an independent for Tarneet, as Indian ethnicity, because he was sick of the home invasions and car burglaries there. And Indians living in Australia are seen as easy targets for these youth gangs because they don't have a reputation as a particularly physically muscular race. I mean, their national sport is a non-contact sport in cricket, so they are seen as a group unlikely to sort of have the physical strength to fight back against a youth gang of machete wielding thugs. I think you know where I am. I think you know what I'm saying there. Now, the federal election, the most likely date is going to be Saturday, April the 5th, which means that it is just a number of weeks, 4 weeks after the WA state election. So there's not much crossover. It can't be on April 12 because that's Passover. So that election date would be anti-Semitic. It won't be April 19 because bloody Alexa, sorry.
She'll be right.
I should always remember to unplug Alexa. I don't care that she's listening since I'm actually broadcasting over the internet. So who cares if she's hearing what I say? So it won't be April 19 because that is Easter, and there'll be, well, it's obviously the most holy period on the Christian calendar. We have the Pope Francis about to die. I think there's no disagreement with that he's about to die of pneumonia at age 88. So there will be a new Pope in time for Easter, and that's when obviously a lot of Australians go away for the Easter long weekend. And then, of course, Saturday, April 26th, that can't be the election day because it's the day after Anzac Day. And obviously, Anthony Albanese, he doesn't want to antagonize any of these groups because he's losing support. And there were two polls that came out yesterday. So there was the Resolve poll, which was catastrophic wipeout level for the Albanese government, which actually might motivate he and his government to hold on until May. So the ALP is down to a national primary vote of 25%, 1 in 4. The LNP is at 39%, the Greens at 13%, One Nation at 9%, which despite all that's gone wrong in One Nation recently, I guess the Pauline Hanson brand still is quite strong in the electorate, and two-party preferred, that would be 55-45 to the LNP, so it'd be a landslide. New South Wales, the ALP on 24%, Victoria 24%, Queensland 25%. They're doing better in South Australia and Western Australia. And I think that is why the Albanese government jointly with the South Australian government decided to jointly nationalise the Whyalla Steelworks after the South Australian government passed legislation to put the current owners, One Steel owned by GFG, which is owned by Indian-born British businessman Sanjeev Gupta, not to be confused with the CNN Dr. Sanjay Gupta. Now, this is just the latest a heavy industry venture of his that has gone sour. So in Europe and the UK, I mean, just Google Sanjeev Gupta, a businessman, and you will see just how much of his ventures have ended in ruin. So that's another. He's currently in Dubai, so that's where some would say he is hiding. So he actually he bought it when it last went into administration in 2017. So the Albanese government and the Malinowskis government, they are spending a joint $2.4 billion on the bailout package. So 1,100 are directly employed by the Whyalla Steelworks, 2,000 indirectly is in the town of 22,000. It's in the seat of Grey, which is a safe Liberal seat. But they've sold it, like the Albanese and Malinowskis government make green steel for green hydrogen as part of their green revolution. So they have to hang on for it. Now, Peter Dutton has said me too to the bailout. He also said me too to the Albanese's bulk billing bulk up, which was announced yesterday. Now, I'm not sure about all of you, but it's almost impossible to find a bulk billing practice. I go to a private practice where I pay a gap. There's many Australians who put off going to see the doctor because they can't afford it. I'm not one of those. I think it's important to always see the doctor, even though it makes your bank balance take a hit, and especially if you need medication afterwards. So this is the press release by the Prime Minister's office. So it's it is 8.5 billion over 4 years, which is aiming to have 9 out of 10 GPs bulk billed by 2030. So promised to deliver 18 million bulk billed GP visits. So I remember about 10 years ago, it was much easier to get bulk billed. There was a freeze of the bulk billing rate under the previous coalition government, which I think this is why Peter Dutton has said me too, and also because he was the health minister when Tony Abbott in the 2014 budget, sprung that $7 GP co-payment, which was very unpopular. Even though I'm a libertarian, I've pretty much learnt during COVID that Australians expect free healthcare. That's why they all clogged up the emergency department, because they didn't want to pay to see a GP. They should it should be free, or they can't afford it. And this is what John Howard, he was initially opposed to Medicare when the Hawke government launched it, but he came to accept that the Australian people liked it. And the reason people go to emergency rooms for instead of seeing a doctor is because it's free, because it's state run. There's been these urgent care clinics, which are sort of like in between a GP and emergency department. The Rudd-Gillard government, I don't know what's happened to them, those GP super clinics. Yes, yeah, I'm not the only one that's noticed this. Most of these pathology tests and that, they're all still bulk billed, like blood tests. But I also have private health insurance, so that covers things like my teeth, which I think are in pretty good shape, because I don't want to have terrible teeth when I'm older. There's certainly, you see a lot of, you don't like to say it, a lot of elderly people around with bad teeth, health issues, and so that's an incentive for me to make sure that if I've got an issue, go to the doctor and go to the dentist as well. That's not covered by Medicare. It actually is covered by the NHS in the UK. There's never been, as the Greens have a policy for Denticare, but it's always been seen as too expensive by the major parties. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. Do you not see the dentist because it's so expensive? It's still expensive for me, even though I have private health insurance. It was introduced by the Howard government, the 30% private health insurance rebate, but it's still not cheap. So I pay health insurance premiums weekly. I think it's important. But there's lots who don't bother. And this is the reality. It's just, it all feeds into the cost of living. The freshwater resolve poll was a bit better for the Labor Party. When I mean bit better, well, it wasn't catastrophic. So the primary vote for the I've actually included it here. Oh yeah, no, they haven't. I think you have to pay for the AFR financial review, but it's 52-48 two-party preferred to the coalition. It also projects a hung parliament. That is what's the most likely scenario, a hung parliament. It's just a question of, it seems that the coalition is more likely to get over the 70 seats, which there's a few independents who would be more inclined to back a Dutton, a Liberal government, such as Di Lee, the member for Fowler. She's ex-Liberal anyway. Bob Katter, Rebecca Sharkey, even Allegra Spender in Wentworth. She's Teal, most likely to be re-elected. She does come from a blue blood family. Her father and grandfather were Liberal MPs as well, although she's certainly not a liberal in the classical sense. She doesn't support free speech at all. And I'm not sure if she was invited to the anti-Semitism summit. Her electorate does have the highest proportion of Jews in Australia, but she they also wanted these laws to combat anti-Semitism to protect the LGBT community as well. There's a lot of them in Wentworth as well. So I remember there was that 7:30 interview that she gave where she wanted hate speech to be protected, and as she mentioned that destroy pedo freaks, that sign should be illegal to be displayed at anti-trans rallies. Now, New Zealand is going through its Pride season. Did anyone see the Man Up haka that was performed by members of Brian Tamaki's Destiny's Church, disrupting a Auckland Pride parade, and they also disrupted a drag queen storytime event. And because Christopher Luxon is a weak cuck, he is succumbing to activists and media demands to review Destiny's Church's tax-exempt status as a religion. And New South Wales Health, now trigger warning here, they shared on their Instagram story this disgusting graphic by the Burnett Foundation, which is an LGBT charity. So it says, planning to fuck around during Pride, and has this, what looks like this man pleasuring another man in a gay sauna. Get your Mpox vaccine, get up to date with your Mpox shots, and measles MMR while you're at it. And at least they've been forced to apologize for this. So so it says here that going down here, the head of communications and engagement at the Health New Zealand, Catherine Delors, said the story was visible for only a few hours before it was removed. We understand the image used by Burnett and our reshare upset some people. Burnett was trying to raise awareness about Mpox, measles, immunizations in good faith, and thought it'd be useful health messaging to share. Apologize to anyone who was upset by that. We know we've got it wrong on this occasion. We've acknowledged that, we've addressed that, and learned from it. And in Auckland this Sunday, there was a pro-LGBT protest at Auckland's Albert Park, which is the venue where Kelly J. Keane was set upon by that mob a couple of years ago and had to be rushed away into a car. She feared for her life. And there was one trans activist, a dude, who decided to take an estrogen tablet in that I guess you call it a hut. I can't remember what it's exactly likely called, but that was where Kelly J. Keane was set upon, and that's also where this trans activist took the estrogen in public. Apology for sharing that. Yeah, that was shared by the New Zealand Health Department, which they've apologized for, well, to anyone who was offended. And don't forget, we've got Sydney's gay and lesbian Mardi Gras coming up, and thankfully I'm not in Sydney where everything's painted rainbow gay up in Sydney. So yeah, thankfully Pride season's over here in Melbourne, but yeah, I feel sorry for you Sydney-siders there. Now, the Sky News Anti-Semitism Summit, it wasn't the only a summit conference that occurred last week. So there was over in London, there was Jordan Peterson's ghastly Alliance for Responsible Citizenship Talk Fest, which all the speeches, they're on the same theme that, you know, we're in a battle for Western civilization, even though most of the speakers there are people who have failed or are failing to defend Western civilization. So, I mean, if you have a look at I'll just bring it up here, the ARC speakers. So they're all members of this intellectual dark web that, of course, love to talk in their studios, but they're the first one to have a go at working class street activists. So Kemi Badenoch, the the Conservative leader who is absolutely collapsing the party's vote in the polls, even more than Rishi Sunak did. Konstantin Kissin of Trigonometry, though, he actually said something based recently, who he challenged a guest who tried to claim that Rishi Sunak is an Englishman. He actually had a moment of actual realism there, and he actually said that he's not an Englishman. I think that he shouldn't be listened to because of the Ann Coulter rule, which is immigrants, they should be here 3 generations before they get to boss us around. Michael Gove, the Conservative puppet master behind Kemi Badenoch, stabbed Boris Johnson in the back. Mike Johnson, Niall Ferguson, JD Vance totally smacked down Niall Ferguson's defense of the forever war in Ukraine. Nigel Farage, we obviously wish that he would be a bit better. Vivek Ramaswamy was there, of course, is on the outer after he disparaged American culture. And Tony Abbott, who as Prime Minister, didn't do anything to address the problems that we are still facing. And Tony Abbott is I think he's on the advisory board as well. So is former Deputy Prime Minister John Anderson and former Australian Prime Minister John Howard. And then also on the board are if Peter Dutton wins the election, 2 Dutton cabinet ministers. So Andrew Hastie would be Minister for Defence, and also Jacinta Price would be Minister for Indigenous Australians and Government Efficiency. So they still have their opportunity to actually make an impact when they're in government. Douglas Murray is also on the board as well, and he was part of the triggered News Corp neocon commentators who were appalled at Donald Trump taking what I believe what he was doing in knocking down Vladimir Zelenskyy a couple of pegs, is because commentators such as Douglas Murray and former British Prime Ministers like Boris Johnson, they inflated Vladimir Zelensky's ego to make him believe that he was the modern day Churchill fighting modern day Hitler, which of course is Putin. So Douglas Murray, even though he's a Brit, it was on the front page of the New York Post. Look, they had the American flag next to the Ukraine flag. They led with Douglas Murray's editorial, President Trump, this is a dictator, and 10 other Ukraine war truths we ignore at our peril. This is a New York newspaper. Why have they got a British commentator talking about a foreign conflict? And Andrew Bolt, he also had a triggered editorial where he decried Donald Trump, blaming essentially saying that Vladimir Zelenskyy didn't do enough to prevent the Russian operation in Ukraine. Senator Slayer says, Tim Whitey keeps saying, 45% of Tim's show is RA. Who are you? Are you trying to be like Peter Grace, who always used to cut up my shows and do the counter because he has nothing better to do in his life? Pele Conservative Australian says Douglas Murray is gay. Yes, that's a fact. Are you using it as an insult? Because it's actually a fact. That's a bit mean, Dawn. Douglas Murray is a Zionist. Yes, that is true as well. Are you meaning that as a slur, Pale Conservative Australian? Because that's a fact. He got some special award from Israel. So, yes, they're particularly bad, the British media, News Corp included, in their unwavering support for Ukraine. And there've now been these various ex-military generals and other commentators saying we must think about bringing in conscription to continue the fight in Ukraine now that the US support looks like it is departing. There was, of course, the summit between the new US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, and the Foreign Minister of Russia, Sergei Lavrov, in Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia. And Zelenskyy was, of course, very triggered that he wasn't invited there. And this is where Donald Trump just completely unloaded on Zelenskyy. And like I said, I think Trump's strategy here, I believe, is to basically deflate Zelensky's ego that you're not special. Look, just cut a deal because your country's becoming like Gaza. And there's lots of your young men dying. There's deaths on both sides. And so now's the time to cut a deal and bring about peace.
People, they're great people. I don't want to do that, but we got to get this war ended. And if they don't make a settlement like fast, and Zelenskyy, I will say this, he wants to settle now. He's had enough. He shouldn't have allowed this to happen either. No. You know, if he's no angel, right. He shouldn't have allowed this war to happen. First of all, he's fighting a much bigger entity, okay? Much bigger. When he was, talking so brave and so... Now, two things happened. They were brave, but we gave them billions of dollars. The United States spent $200 billion more than Europe. Why did we spend more? You know why? Because Biden never asked Europe to spend more.
We're hearing that Russia wants to force Ukraine to hold new elections in order to sign any kind of a peace deal. Is that something that the U.S. would ever support?
Well, we have a situation where we haven't had elections in Ukraine, where we have martial law, or essentially martial law in Ukraine, where the leader in Ukraine, I mean, I hate to say it, but he's down at 4% approval rating, and where a country has been blown to smithereens. You got most of the cities are laying on their sides. The buildings are collapsed. It looks like a massive demolition site. So, people are tired of it. People want to see something happen.
And you don't do that. But Russia could have been talked out of that so easily. That should never have been a war. And all those dead people shouldn't be dead, and all those cities shouldn't be demolished right now. So when Zelenskyy said, he wasn't invited to a meeting, I mean, it wasn't a priority because he did such a bad job in negotiating so far. Number one, you shouldn't have had a war. And if you did, it should have been solved and settled immediately. It could have been. But look what you have. You have a man who's led a country that had the most beautiful cities that they demolished, had the most beautiful domes. Those domes are the most beautiful in the world.
But that's Russia's fault, though, Mr. President. Russia
They're
did
all demolished, 1,000-year-old domes. And everything's demolished. I mean, it's like a demolition site, though. It's sort of like Gaza. In fact, it's more, at least Gaza has a couple of buildings standing. Right. I mean, this place, you take a look at the demolition of so many of those cities, and and all those people are killed. never to come back again.
But Mr. President, that's
They're all
all.
killed.
That's Vladimir Putin's fault. Don't you agree?
I get tired of listening to it. I'll tell you what. I've seen it enough. And then he complains that he's not at a meeting that we're having with Saudi Arabia trying to intermediate a peace. Well, he's been at meetings for 3 years with a president who didn't know what the hell he was doing. He's been in the meetings for 3 years, and nothing got done. So I don't think it's very important to be at meetings, to be honest with you. He's been there for 3 years. He makes it very hard to make deals. But look what's happened to his country. It's been demolished.
But no, I hear you.
He's going to go back.
But Mr. President, you know who's to blame for that?
That's Vladimir.
But don't you think it's Vladimir Putin that did the invasion unwarranted to try to take back land he had no right to? And don't you think fundamentally that's that? And if you could just, and now both sides want to talk, it seems, so we should just get to that point?
They only want to.
And now Vladimir Zelenskyy, he's now said that he'd resign as Ukraine president if it meant that Ukraine could join NATO. I'm pretty sure that is a non-negotiable Russian position for a peace agreement, that Ukraine is not to join NATO. And it wouldn't matter who is the president of Ukraine, that would be a red line for Russia. And all of I saw Piers Morgan and of course Konstantin Kisin defending Zelenskyy not holding elections because his term expired in 2024, saying, well, there was no elections in the United Kingdom for 10 years because of World War II. But Australia, I should note, we were in a battle for our survival in World War II, yet we still had a federal election in 1943. All of the states voted, and the incumbent Prime Minister John Curtin, Labor Party, was re-elected in a landslide. Churchill, he was unelected, Zelenskyy at least won a term in 2019, but Churchill, he was an unelected prime minister during World War II. Stanley Baldwin, he won the 1935 election for the Conservatives, then he retired in 1937, then Neville Chamberlain became prime minister. Then because during World War II, there was a joint war cabinet with Labour after the Norway fiasco. Clement Attlee, the Labour Party leader, demanded Chamberlain's resignation. That's how Churchill became Prime Minister. And even now, as I said, Churchill is lionised, but after the end of World War II, he lost that election in a landslide. Labour's Clement Attlee, he won that election for the Labour Party in a landslide. I mean, sure, Churchill, he did win back the Prime Ministership later in 1951, but his first electoral test, he got voted out in a landslide. But of course, the other reason why there can't be elections in Ukraine, because there'd be Russian propaganda interference, which was the excuse for cancelling Romania's elections, because there was apparently Russian propaganda interference, even though Romania was never part of the Soviet Union. I mean, it was a Warsaw Pact, a Cold War communist satellite state, but that was pretty alarming that they cancelled their presidential election. Now, I heard that some Australian journalists claim that because Donald Trump is abandoning Europe and traditional alliances, that's why we had those Chinese warships in the Tasman Sea, not too far from Sydney, doing live fire exercises. In fact, international commercial flights had to be diverted. And the line from the Defence Minister, Richard Marles, that we didn't get satisfactory notice, that was his. And Albanese said, we're not going to take any trade action. That's because his Trade Minister, Don Farrell, has been sucking up to China, parading around rock lobsters on trade missions to China. Of course, he's got conflict of interest because he runs a winery. China banned wine exports as retaliation for the Morrison government wanting an investigation into the origins of COVID. So the fact that, I mean, it wasn't the Donald Trump's America First policy that made Anthony Albanese have such a weak response to China's provocative live fire exercises, which they hardly gave any notice. And it was actually them that said to these commercial flights, go this direction or else. So it was basically this, and the Albanese government, their line is we cooperate where we can, disagree where we must. But the CCP, I'm thinking to myself, what are they doing jeopardizing Anthony Albanese's re-election campaign? Don't they want the handsome boy to be re-elected so they can have continue to have the suck-up trade minister in Don Farrell, and all Penny Wong and Richard Miles are going to do when there's an incident is just sort of wag their finger? Because it was only a couple of weeks ago where they shot flares at Australian fighter jets in international waters. Senator says, stupid iPhone purposely sabotages my hate comments. Well, did you hear about in the UK that Apple, at the request of the Starmer government, has made Apple allow backdoor access to iPhones by the government? You have basically no privacy protection in the UK anymore. And so the thought police, they have easier access now to your inner thoughts. Now, we also had the other big conference was, of course, CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference, which was much more entertaining than ARC. It was the most entertaining out of the three, the Anti-Semitism Summit, Alliance for Responsible Citizenship. What the hell does that name mean? What's its citizenship of? Global citizenship, the West. CPAC obviously stands for Conservative Political Action Conference, and the Argentinian President Javier Milei gifted Elon Musk a chainsaw to slash government. But the man who stole the show was, of course, Steve Bannon, who was Donald Trump's chief strategist in his first administration. Now, Donald Trump, he has had total victory with his confirmations. Kash Patel has confirmed as director of the FBI. Trump today announced that Dan Bongino, former Secret Service agent and most popular live streamer on Rumble, would be deputy director of the FBI. But that also means no more Dan Bongino show, which is disappointing. But that's basically a dream team. Now, Bannon, he was a bit immature when he quit the Trump White House, I think because he'd never been in a political position before, but he learnt that was not the right way to behave. Trump called him sloppy Steve in response, but he is back to being a total Trump loyalist. In fact, he wants Trump to run for a third term. There's the third term project. Well, I want, of course, the Trump third term to be Don Jr., though at the CPAC straw poll, it was J.D. Vance who easily won it. But this is just a portion of Steve Bannon's speech. And because we are in Australia, where the salute carries a penalty of 1 year in prison, even if you broadcast it on the internet, I'm not going to play that.
I'm just a crazy Irishman. This is a glorious day. You know why it's glorious? Kash Patel's director of the FBI. Confirmed by the United States Senate. As was Bobby Kennedy Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, Pete Hegseth. Didn't they tell you it couldn't be done? Didn't they? All right there. Didn't the mainstream media say it couldn't be done? None of them, right? It's a glorious day. Mitch McConnell's gone. He retired, right? You did that. Remember on the Ukraine vote? Remember that? He broke his pick on that. You delivered that. Just like you delivered Tulsi and Bobby and Pete and Cash. They said Trump wouldn't get any of his cabinet members as key. He got them all. Why? Because of you.
Now, the mainstream media over in the US now, they've tried for a while to try and drive a wedge between Trump and Musk. They had that sit-down interview with Hannity last week, and there's reports that Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard have told their respective departments to ignore Elon Musk's Doge directive to state 5 things that you did this past week, otherwise you're fired. And Elon Musk is also having allegedly baby mama dramas with Ashley St. Clair, who is the worst tradthought e-girl who's ever been allowed to be in the Con Inc. sphere. She claims that she secretly fathered Elon Musk's 13th child. And it's still not clear whether it was IVF or it was traditional insemination. So she says that she went public because it was about to be revealed by the media. So she just wants privacy. That's why she did a New York Post spread with her publicist. And now she's done another interview with the New York Post saying that she wants to sue for full custody. Where hasn't she got full custody anyway? But although I have my substantial differences with Nick Fuentes now, his golden rule, no e-girls ever, stands truer than ever. I mean, what was Elon Musk thinking? And she was part of this e-girl tradthought brigade, along with Lauren Southern, who thankfully we don't hear from anymore, and Sydney Watson Thotson, who their strategy in 2024 was to say, men, be nice to us, we won't vote for Trump. So you're not really that MAGA conservative if you're vowing to withhold your vote because there's some mean men saying things to you online. Truly pathetic. Now, going back to the international diplomacy of Trump, so there was Trump's special envoy to Ukraine, General Keith Kellogg, met with Zelenskyy in Kyiv to sort of try and smooth things over. He was there with his staff, Snap, Crackle, and Pop. It's so funny that there's a US general called Kellogg. I mean, that's a doozy of the name. I mean, there's another general called Sanitarium. And now Trump, he's claimed credit for the Gaza ceasefire, though it is on incredibly shaky ground after, well, Hamas, it still amazes a lot of people that they've still got a lot of support and apologists and look the other way as in the West, but they seem to have really blowing up some of their, you would say, soft support with the fact that they released 4 hostages, dead hostages, and paraded the coffins around in central Gaza. Now, supposedly Gaza's in ruins, but they're able to hold this party. The Hamas soldiers. They're in freshly clean Hamas uniforms. The children there look well fed. Maybe there's a whole society just living in those tunnels. Though the mainstream media only ever shows us the rubble. It was the Babayas family, this mother and her two children, Ariel 5 and Kafir 2. They've been parading around the live hostages in their what are called humiliation rituals, saying, "Oh yes, they've treated me very well, even though they look malnourished, like they've just been released from a concentration camp." So the fact that they're literally dancing on graves, absolutely disgusting, abhorrent. I can't believe somebody like Andy Knowledge still has the Palestine flag as his Telegram channel. I hope this leads to a rethink. There is that looks like the fact that they were able to assemble this stage, they've still got a lot of materials there. Now they claim that sending back the wrong coffin body of the mother, that was just a mix-up. They just sent some random Palestinian, and the Israeli doctors said that they were strangled to death. They didn't die in an airstrike. So yeah, it was absolutely abhorrent. Also, abhorrent was did anyone hear about the attempted bombings of the buses in Tel Aviv? Probably what you might not have heard is that two Jewish Israelis were arrested along with a Palestinian in connection with explosions on 3 buses. Allegedly, these two Jewish Israelis, one is a taxi driver, was detained on suspicion of having driven the terrorists to the scene of the attack. According to the report, the two from Bat Yam and Holland, respectively, are also suspected of attempted murder. So the Israeli authorities believe that they weren't simply unwittingly transporting them, that they were part of the plot. So there's also been there has been a Jewish man who's been arrested in Florida for shooting. I'm not sure how. So there were 2 Israelis who were shot in Florida by an Israelis who we thought were Palestinians, but were actually Israeli visitors. And there's actually so this is obviously quite shocking here. The fact that there are these radical Israelis who just would decide to just shoot who they thought were random Palestinians on US territory. I haven't been banning anyone. You've all been banning each other in the chat because you all can't get along. Now, there was also, it just broke today that the Australian Defence Force has stripped the security clearance of a officer who's suspected to have loyalty to Israel. The man told ASIO interviewers he did not view Israel as a foreign government and that he would share classified information with the Israeli Defense Forces if they asked for it. So ASIO believed that he was a risk of being exploited by the Mossad because, well, Israel is not part of our Five Eyes. I noticed that not even Avi Yemeni or any other Jewish lobbyist has said this is anti-Semitism. We also had Mike Burgess, the ASIO chief, Burjo, give his annual threat assessment, where he did concede that ASIO is investigating organised crimes allegedly being paid by foreign actors to carry out some of this anti-Semitic arson and vandalism, though he has said that he suspects that much of it is also homegrown as well, and has said that he doesn't believe that anti-Semitic hate crimes have peaked yet. So I don't know what intelligence he's got. He also says that there was an attempted assassination plot on a person in Australia, well, not on Australian soil, but to get them overseas to assassinate them. We also have Donald Trump, his latest proposal is to audit the gold in Fort Knox to see if it's actually there, because there hasn't been a president who's gone to visit Fort Knox. So has the gold been there, or is the gold still there, or has it been plundered? All right, now it is time for the results of the German federal election, which was just we've held on Sunday, and then we now have the results. Ausländer raus, Ausländer raus, Ausländer raus, Deutschland, Ausländer raus, Ausländer raus. So the Alternative for Deutschland, they doubled their vote share. They actually got 1 more percentage point than the exit poll predicted. So the Christian Democratic Union, their Conservative Party, got 28.5%. The AfD got 20.8%. Second biggest party, the governing Social Democratic Party, it basically had lost 10% of its votes, 16.4%. Its coalition partner, the Greens, 11.6%. Die Linke, the Left Party, 8.7%. And the Free Democrats, who were in the third party of the coalition, but left the coalition, they are out of the Bundestag, because under Germany's mixed member proportionate system, if a party gets less than 5% of the party vote, they win no seats unless they win 3 electorates. And now this was introduced after World War II, the Federal Republic of Germany, to stop extremist parties getting influence like they did in the former Reichstag. And the alt-left party, the BSW, they just missed out with 4.97%. So Germany, like most other European mainland countries, has a multi-party proportional representation system. So this is how the Bundestag will look, the seat distribution. So the Social Democrats, 116, the Christian Democrat Union, 211, the Greens, 98, the AfD, 142, and Die Linke, 62. That's 630 seats. So what is most likely is yet another grand coalition between the Christian Democrats and the Social Democrats, with the Christian Democrat leader, Friedrich Merz. This is what he looks like here, to be the new Chancellor. Olaf Scholz will not continue as Vice Chancellor like he was under Angela Merkel. Angela Merkel, 3 of her 4 terms, 12 of her 16 years in power, were under a grand coalition. So it was literally the Uni Party that let in the million illegals into Europe. And because the Christian Democrat Union have ruled out being in a coalition with Die Linke, the AfD, I should say, they are going to be shut out of the government. And so the Uni Party is going to be back. That is the end result here. Now, there was a very striking east-west divide in the vote. This is the map of the Federal Republic of Germany. The Alternative for Deutschland in light blue won pretty much every electorate in East Germany, apart from Berlin. The Social Union, which is the Bavarian affiliate of the Christian Democrat Union, won all the seats in Bavaria. And the Christian Democrat Union, which is in black, won most of the others there as well. So New Zealand has the same system called mixed member, because there's half electorate, half proportional. The proportional seats are meant to top up, so there's proportional representation and still local MPs. So sadly, because the Uni Party is ganged up on Alternative for Deutschland, there is sadly still going to be, I hope that it doesn't happen, of course, still going to be these illegal migrants, driving cars into native Germans. They were talking tough before the election, their major parties, on migration law. There is going to be still unwavering German support for the war in Ukraine, the AfD. They want friendly relations with Russia. So how can they be Nazis if they want peace with Russia? Though Hitler did sign the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact with the Soviet Union just before World War II, and we know how that worked out. But yeah, Alice Werdel, the AfD leader, as far as I'm aware, there are no lesbian Nazis with Sri Lankan wives. I'm pretty sure about that. But of course, the headlines are a far right party has the biggest share of the votes since the Second World War. There was some Antifa protesters outside of the AfD party, and there was this protester who said, "My son's disabled. If the AfD get into power, I'll leave Germany," like thinking that the AfD are going to be like the Nazis and gas the disabled. I mean, it's totally absurd. And Alice Werdel, she has said that she believes that Hitler was a communist. So that's she believes that the Nazis were just another form of left-wing party. But going back to the regional division there, so obviously East Germany was under the communist Soviet bloc, so it is still it's not as prosperous as West Germany. So they are running as far from communism and socialism as possible, because they've got the memory, like the Poles do. The Poles elected globalists at the last election. All right, that brings us to the end of another Tim's News Explosion. Thank you so much for your company once again. There is audio, Senator Slayer. Please just stop it. Now, remember, I cannot do all of these shows, Unshackled Productions, without your support. So please consider taking out a premium Unshackled membership on the unshackled.net/membership. So have memberships for $5 per month bronze, $50 per year, silver, $10 per month, $100 per year, gold, $25 per month, $250 per year, platinum, $50 per month, $500 per year. And then there is, of course, the subscription options over on Substack. So where you can take out a monthly membership for $5 per month, annual $50 per year, and founding member $500 per year. So the Unshackled.net I still use for the articles, but Substack I use for sending out email alerts for Unshackled Productions and our Unshackled Productions archive. There will be a Wilms Front this Thursday night at 7 p.m. Melbourne time on all the Wilms Front channels. My guest will be Minnie Jackson, who will be, she is a pro-Christian lobbyist, but recently she's been doing a lot of research and exposés on cults which claim to be Christian. So we're going to be talking about what makes a cult and how is it different from organized traditional religions like Christianity. So I'm very much looking forward to that. So make sure that, well, you should already be subscribed to all the Wilms Front channels, wherever you're watching, YouTube, Rumble, X, or the replay on Odyssey. Make sure you click the bell to now for notifications, give a thumbs up, comment below, and share, because that all helps with the algorithm as well. There'll be a fresh report from Tiger Mount with Richard Wollstonecroft later this week. I just released over the weekend his report on ending the war in Ukraine. His report this Friday, spoiler alert, is Mara Gaza, and hopefully he'll be back on Sam Newman's You Cannot Be Serious with Ivan this Wednesday, so watch out for that episode. So I will see you all on Thursday evening, 7 p.m. Melbourne time. Of course, send out all the links on my socials, Telegram, X, Gab, Facebook. That's where I'm normally at. So good night, everybody. Thank you so much for your company and your viewership. And thank you to those who behave themselves in the chat.
Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.